The movie begins with Laura Blacklock, or Lo for short. She's a journalist at The Guardian. That day, she went to work and met her editor, Rowan, who suggested that Lo should take some time off. Rowan knew Lo was still shaken after witnessing a recent accident, but Lo immediately refused, saying that staying home alone would only make her more anxious. Later, she told Rowan that she'd been invited to board the luxurious yacht Aurora Borealis, owned by Richard Bulmer and his wife Anne, the heiress to a Norwegian shipping company. But Anne was in the 4th stage of leukemia. Lo had been invited on the 3-day trip to Norway to cover a charity event for the couple's new foundation. Lo traveled to the yacht, which was anchored in the middle of the sea. The guests were transported there in small boats. As soon as she arrived, Carla, the head of the service crew, told her to take off her shoes since all guests had to wear the slippers provided for them. A bit later, Lo met some of the guests: Adam, Dr. Robert, Anne's personal physician, a married couple named Heidi and Thomas, and Ben Morgan, Lo's ex-boyfriend. Their meeting was awkward. Afterwards, each guest went to their own cabin. Lo's was cabin 8, right across from Heidi and Thomas. Once everyone was aboard, the yacht began to move. Lo sat out on her balcony and heard someone coughing in cabin 10 next door. Then, cigarette butts were tossed onto her balcony from the neighboring one, which she quickly threw away. A while later, Richard gathered everyone and gave a welcome speech. He thanked Heidi and Thomas for their generous donations and explained that the money raised would go to those who couldn't afford treatment. He also apologized that his wife Anne couldn't greet them because she was resting. Then, a late guest arrived, Danny Taylor, an old friend of Richard's who seemed a bit odd. That same night, Lo had a video call with Rowan and told her that Ben was there. Lo then got ready for dinner. On her way, she saw Ben talking to Grace, which made her uncomfortable, so she slipped into cabin 10 to hide. But to her surprise, there was a woman inside, a stranger. As soon as Lo entered, the woman panicked, quickly pulled up her hoodie, and ran into the bathroom. Lo froze for a moment, then hurried out and went to dinner. After dinner, the head of security took Lo to Anne's cabin as Anne wanted to meet her privately. It turned out that Anne had been following Lo's articles for a long time and had personally insisted on inviting her. Anne looked extremely weak. She was breathing heavily and coughing often. She explained that she had stopped her treatment and just wanted to enjoy the time she had left. Then she showed Lo the draft of the speech she planned to give at the charity event and asked if Lo had any suggestion. Lo was shocked when she read it. Anne was planning to donate her entire massive fortune to the foundation. Anne explained that life isn't always about money and that what truly matters is using it for good to help others before it's too late. Then she placed the paper inside a book, left the book in a locked drawer, and hid the key between the books on her shelf. After that, while Lo was heading back to her cabin, she ran into Ben, who was staying in cabin 9. He invited her to talk for a bit. It was clear that he wanted to get back together, and Lo felt the same, though she tried to hide it and stay composed. Later that night, Lo woke up from a nightmare where she saw a woman drowning. When she came to her senses, she suddenly heard a scream coming from cabin 10, the one where the mysterious woman had been earlier, followed by a loud splash in the water. She rushed to her balcony and was shocked to see someone floating on the surface of the sea. She also noticed bloodstains on the balcony of cabin 10. Lo immediately reported it to the yacht crew, saying that someone had fallen overboard. The captain slowed the yacht down right away and began searching, but they found nothing. Carla checked all the rooms and confirmed that every guest was accounted for. No one was missing. Lo explained to Richard, Carla, and the head of security what she saw and heard. She insisted that the person who fell was the woman from cabin 10, blonde hair, wearing a hoodie, and about the same height as her. But the head of security quickly said that cabin 10 was empty and that the guest who was supposed to stay there had canceled 2 days earlier. Lo insisted she wasn't imagining things, but when she tried to show them the bloodstains on the balcony, she was shocked to see they were gone. Even the cigarette butts she had thrown away were missing, since the cabin had been cleaned that morning. Everyone started thinking Lo was imagining things or hallucinating. The captain canceled the distress call he had sent to the Coast Guard, and Richard told everyone to rest. He also ordered the captain to lock cabin 10. The next morning, the yacht's Wi-Fi was down, and the technician was working to fix it. Lo, still convinced that someone had been thrown overboard, asked Richard if she could see all the yacht's crew members to make sure the woman wasn't one of them. When the crew was gathered, Lo looked at each face carefully, but the woman wasn't among them. Then she tried to visit Anne, but Anne refused, saying she was sick and had just taken her medication. Eventually, Lo told Ben what happened and explained that everyone thought she was hallucinating, but she was certain she had met that woman in cabin 10. Then she got an idea, to check Ben's photos from the yacht, hoping to find proof. However, the woman didn't appear in any of the recent pictures. But when Lo looked through some older photos from a party Adam had hosted months earlier, she discovered that the same woman had been one of the guests. Ben didn't remember her and said she was just a random stranger who had wandered into the bar. Lo showed the photo to Richard and the other guests, but it wasn't strong evidence since the picture was taken months ago. Adam said he didn't know her and assumed she was just a stranger. Meanwhile, Ben received a message from Rowan telling him about the accident months ago, how Lo had witnessed her friend's death in a car crash, the same event that had caused her trauma. Ben shared that information with Richard and the other guests, hoping it might help them understand what was going on. Dr. Roberts stepped in and explained that traumatic memories can sometimes resurface during sleep. He suggested that maybe Lo hadn't really seen anything, that it was just a nightmare. Richard tried to calm her down and suggested she visit the spa to relax. At the spa, the therapist applied a facial mask to help Lo relax. Lo eventually drifted off to sleep, but as she did, she relived the traumatic memory of her friend's death in her dream. When she finished and washed off the mask, she saw the shadow of someone standing outside the bathroom. Then she noticed the word "stop" written on the mirror, as if someone was warning her to quit investigating the mysterious woman. Lo quickly left the spa room but only saw the therapist and Adam, who had just come out of the sauna next door. Trying to find out who entered the room, she asked the ship's captain to review the camera footage from the past 20 minutes. But he told her that all the cameras had been turned off since they set sail, to protect the guests' privacy. Lo went back to her cabin to finish her shower and noticed strands of her hair falling into the drain. That gave her an idea, to look for the mysterious woman's hair in cabin 10. But since the door to cabin 10 was locked, she did something crazy. She climbed over the balcony railing and crossed to the neighboring one, almost falling into the sea while doing it. Once inside, she found blonde hair stuck in the sink and took it as evidence. She went straight to Ben and showed it to him to prove that the woman was real. But Ben tried to calm her down, saying they were stuck on the yacht anyway, and promised that once they reached the port, he'd go with her to the police to hand over the evidence. Still, Lo couldn't sit still. She went for a walk and ran into Grace and a man named Lars. Grace opened up and admitted that her relationship with Lars was fake, just for publicity, to improve his image and his company's reputation. She added that Lars owned a tech company specializing in artificial intelligence and facial recognition, and that Richard was one of his investors. Later, Richard, Anne, and the guests gathered together. Richard struggled to hold back tears as he said that this trip was meant to help his wife stay strong and fight her illness. Anne thanked everyone but was clearly emotional and too weak to speak much. After a while, Danny started playing his guitar and singing. Anne apologized, saying she wasn't feeling well, and went back to her room. The next morning, Richard and the guests were getting ready to take the small boat to go whale watching, while Dr. Robert decided to stay on the yacht to look after Anne. Lo chose not to go with them so she could continue her investigation. She quietly went down to the crew area and asked if anyone had seen the mysterious woman, but no one had. On her way back, she ran into Dr. Robert, who asked what she was doing down there. She quickly replied that she was just exploring the yacht. When Lo returned to her cabin, she saw that the cleaning had been finished. Luckily, she had hidden the strand of blonde hair in the sink drain, so she quickly put it in her jacket pocket. At the same moment, she noticed a loose button lying on the floor. When the guests returned from the whale watching trip, Lo was standing watching the waves. She saw Ben talking kindly with Grace, and the captain was visible upstairs. As soon as they left, Lo suddenly felt someone push her in the pool, covering her mouth, and she couldn't breathe. Lo managed to save herself before things got worse, but no one believed what had happened. They insisted it was all nonsense. Even the captain, who had been upstairs, said he hadn't seen anything. This made her certain that someone on the yacht was trying to kill her to stop her investigation into the blonde woman. Her suspicions were confirmed when she noticed that Dr. Roberts' jacket was missing a button, which looked exactly like the one she found in her cabin. She immediately accused him of entering her cabin. Then she remembered the plastic bag containing the blonde woman's hair was still in her jacket pocket, so she ran to the laundry room, but found the bag had disappeared. It turned out that Ben had told everyone that Lo had the hair as evidence and was defending her against claims that she was imagining things, but Lo believed the culprit was the one who stole the evidence. Because of her behavior, Danny decided to leave early, and the other guests were annoyed with her, thinking she was paranoid and toxic. Despite the pressure, Lo remained certain of what she had seen. That night, she didn't sleep. Suddenly, someone knocked on her cabin door. Through the peephole, she saw a person wearing a hood, resembling the mysterious blonde woman, who then ran as if trying to lure her to follow. Lo took the bait and chased the person until she reached the crew area, then the engine room, and finally a small isolated cabin. The person stood behind her, revealing her face, and it was indeed the woman from cabin 10. Lo was shocked because she had seen her drowning. But the woman said she was still alive and asked Lo to stop looking for her, warning that her life was in danger. She admitted that she was the one who wrote "Stop" on the mirror, but denied pushing Lo into the pool. Lo pulled the hood off, revealing that the blonde hair was a wig and her head was shaved. She looked a lot like Anne. The woman went insane, hitting Lo on the head until she fainted, then locked her in the cabin and closed the door from the outside. When Lo woke up, she tried to open the door and shout, but no one heard her. In the end, she began to understand everything. She remembered that Anne had first said she had stopped her medication, but the second time she said the opposite, and she had been confused when Lo tried to remind her of her earlier words. At that moment, Lo realized the terrifying truth. The first character was the real Anne, and the second was the mysterious woman impersonating her. It all made sense because the second Anne wasn't coughing or struggling to breathe like the first time, which meant the one who fell into the sea was the real Anne, and the one in disguise was the mysterious woman. Lo was certain that Richard was behind everything because he knew his wife intended to cut him out of the inheritance. A little later, the mysterious woman returned, and Lo confronted her, demanding the truth. The woman confessed that her name was Carrie and explained that Richard knew he would be removed from the will. He used Lars's facial recognition program to find someone who looked like his wife. Richard had met Carrie at Adam's party bar and offered her a large sum of money to impersonate Anne and agree to a new will that would give him all the assets. Carrie, who had been poor, agreed to build a better life for her only daughter. On the yacht, she shaved her head and applied pale makeup to appear sick. But the real Anne saw Richard and Carrie together in the cabin and was shocked. An altercation occurred, and Richard accidentally killed Anne, throwing her body into the sea and wiping the blood off the balcony glass. Unfortunately for them, Lo heard the noise, and Carrie panicked, realizing she had been involved in a terrible crime. After hearing the story, Lo told Carrie that Richard was using her, and that once he got the inheritance, he would kill her to eliminate the only witness who had seen Anne killed. Lo suggested they work together to expose Richard's crimes, but Carrie was terrified. She ran from the cabin and joined the guests at the fireworks party organized by Richard. After the show, Ben went to Lo's cabin but ran into Dr. Robert leaving the room, who said that Lo was overwhelmed and needed rest. It was revealed that Dr. Robert and even the yacht's captain were cooperating with Richard. Robert had been tasked with giving Anne an overdose so she would die faster. When they couldn't find Lo, Richard got anxious and ordered Robert to find her and kill her immediately. Robert tried to refuse, but Richard threatened to expose an old crime of his, a death caused by an overdose 3 years earlier, so the doctor reluctantly agreed. But Carrie had been secretly listening to everything. When Richard went to sleep, Carrie returned to Lo's cabin and told her that the yacht would stop in Norway in 2 hours and that she would leave the door open so Lo could escape. Lo asked her to sign the will first so she would be safe and reminded her to stay careful. Lo promised she would come back to rescue her, and they agreed to work together to expose Richard. Finally, the yacht arrived, and the guests were transferred to the port in small boats since the massive yacht couldn't dock directly. At that time, Dr. Robert was still searching for Lo. He reached the secret cabin, but she hid just in time. On the other side, Ben, worried about Lo, didn't ignore his instincts and decided to sneak back onto the yacht to make sure she was safe. At the same time, Lo left her hiding spot and started looking for Anne's letter. She found it and hid it in her phone case, then ran to use the communication system to call for help. But before she could, Robert confronted her, holding a poison syringe with the yacht's captain accompanying him. She tried to escape, but they cornered her. At the critical moment, Ben appeared to save her, but unfortunately, Robert injected him with the poison, and he died instantly. Lo seized the chance, threw herself into the sea, and swam with all her strength until she reached the shore. She found a nearby cabin, entered it, lit the fireplace, and put on dry clothes. Meanwhile, Robert reported to Richard that Ben was dead, but Lo had escaped. Richard didn't care. Convinced that Lo would die from the cold, he ordered Robert to prepare for the will signing and to kill Carrie after the party. The lawyers arrived with the head of security, and none of them suspected that she wasn't the real Anne. Carrie, forced to comply, announced that she had changed the will to leave everything to her husband, saying he had stood by her in her worst days. She was hesitant, but signed in the end. After the signing, Richard prepared a special dress for Carrie for the grand gala that night. At the same time, Lo sneaked into the party hall and went to the head of security. She told him that Richard had killed Anne to inherit her fortune and that the woman who signed the will was fake, offering him Anne's original letter as proof. Luckily, the head of security had been suspicious from the start, so he believed her immediately. When the party started and the important guests arrived, Richard stood proudly, presenting his wife in front of everyone. At that moment, Lo grabbed the microphone and read Anne's letter aloud. Carrie intervened and confirmed that the letter was genuine. Richard was stunned, knowing that if Lo exposed Carrie as fake, he would automatically admit to killing Anne. Lo seized the moment, and all the guests were convinced that Carrie was the real Anne. The letter revealed that Anne had planned to transfer all her assets to the charitable foundation, completely removing Richard from management. Richard panicked, lost his temper, and broke down in front of everyone. But Richard himself revealed that Carrie was fake, grabbed her as a hostage with a knife, and dragged her away from the party. Lo announced in front of the guests that Richard had killed Anne and that Carrie was just a hired woman. The head of security ran to the storage room to get a rifle, and Lo began chasing Richard, who was trying to escape in a lifeboat. A few weeks later, Lo wrote an article detailing all the tragic events that had taken place on the yacht. The article included Anne's final will, which allocated most of her assets to cancer research, and mentioned that Dr. Robert and the captain would face trial for conspiring with Richard. Lo dedicated a section to honor Ben, describing him as a hero who had sacrificed himself. All her colleagues, including Rowan, were proud of her courage. The film ended with a shot of Lo receiving a video from Carrie, who was hugging her daughter and playing happily together. At the end of the video, Carrie invited Lo to come visit them soon, and that's where the film ends. The story delivers a clear message: never rush to share secrets with everyone, or you could end up being the victim in the end. If you liked this recap, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Good evening wherever you are, and see you in a new recap.